what our company is we are a company that is based on the data that is generated by machines and can also be consumed by things like company analytics programs and other machines. And the real opportunity that we're going after, since there's a lot of people in the data business, is how do you curate the data that things like vehicles are generating, both on the land and in the sky and in the water and in space, and how do you bridge that data with things like the electrical ecosystem? Because the electrical ecosystem has never in 100 years had any reason to talk to the people that make automobiles. There's never been any reason, but because of the rise of electric and now autonomous vehicles, all of a sudden, the electrical grid operators and the people that make equipment in that realm and so on need to start sharing data. And the biggest issue is that there's no existing system that can remove all the friction points to exchanging that data. So mobility is, of course, the term that's being applied to anything that moves independently. So pretty much excluding, trains or subways. But we have everything from hourly rental scooters now up to I think I've counted 6 companies that are developing aerial taxis, that are self-flying aerial taxis like super drones. And they're all raising a lot of money and getting somewhere. The third category that we need to bridge data to is we just call infrastructure, because infrastructure represents, the cities, the counties, the states, federal agencies in the US, and there's some analog to those, of course, all over the world. And again, they've never had to share data at any scale, much less figure out who would pay for that and how could you monetize it. So what we've done at Terbine is to develop a platform that runs in the cloud that is capable of not only just capturing the data, but it actually contextualizes the data. So we know who and what generated it, who owns the data. It may not be the company or organization that generated it, who could look at the data if it was needed by a third party. A lot of things, regulatory compliance, eventually taxation will come into play, border crossing of data, so many issues that you have to solve to allow frictionless data sharing. So since the opportunity that's coming at us right now has to do with all these new electric and autonomous vehicles that we're seeing in incredible abundance now, we figured that was the place to start. Without going into laborious detail, but I'm happy to, if you want, ask any of these questions. We really believe that you had to whack-a-mole a heck of a lot of business, technical, and legal issues in order to create a system for exchanging Internet of Things data. And that's been what we've been focused on for the last few years. It's been an incredible journey. We're surrounded by a lot of great, smart people. We all have backgrounds in our, our resumes of building pretty big, scalable things that are pretty bulletproof, that work in government and enterprise, which we believe qualifies us to work on something that could become very large. In a nutshell, we took a cue from how things like, digital telephony or air traffic control or even containerized shipping work, which is to create a separate layer for command and control and tracking things. And that is exactly what we've done. We've created the first broad-based specification for metadata in the Internet of Things, which really just means that we've really attempted to take into account anything you could possibly come up with in the future. And we're pretty confident in that, actually. And we're going to continue to iterate that. Then we have a whole bunch of algorithms we've written that act upon that metadata to manipulate the data itself. And this, again, is extremely similar to how phone calls happen. This is a bit of an eye chart, but what we've done is to look at all the different categories that need to come together onto a common exchange to create a real data ecosystem. And if you have a data ecosystem, you can create data commerce, not just e-commerce where goods are moved around, but literally data commerce. We have data commerce now in the consumer world, if you want to count what Google and Facebook and those guys do, but nobody's been concentrating on an incredible number of smart connected machines and devices that are appearing out there. So let me just go to the next one. We have, built our fundamental platform. We have, in a way, it's kind of, it's not really like Google or anything that's out there right now. Those are actually incredibly basic. They don't create this rich metadata layer because they don't have to. They're indexing websites and things like that. Whereas in our case, the data that we're dealing with is it all looks exactly the same. It's all called time series data. And there's almost nothing in it that indicates anything about its source or its quality or where it lives. Are these sensors under the hood of a truck, or are they on a light pole or on a ship? And all of those have different characteristics, different things that affect the readings and the data quality. So we've had to take all those factors into account as we've developed the system and the specification that drives it. In the sense of, who's going to give us their data, we've had a very almost fortunate occurrence back in the beginning of the company, which is we were discovered by McKinsey. And McKinsey doesn't really deal with startups, but they said, we're not hearing anybody else talk about what you're talking about, and we know that that's got to be where things are going. So they started bringing us into their top echelon clients of many industries. Companies like Maersk and BMW and so on, and sat us down with senior executives to talk about how they see this going, what would it take to make them happy, if you will, about putting their data in a giant third-party platform so that their data could be exchanged and vended to other entities. So that led to the design, of what we do. And it's, again, if you look at the consumer platforms, they're not really about, heavy control over who can do what to whom, whereas companies and government agencies do care about that. So we've put a lot of effort into, we have a thing called the policy engine that can control who can do what to whom and under what circumstances. All of it is designed so that it could even run on multiple cloud providers at once if needed. We've already done a little bit of that. And we're now in what we call the data land grab. We've already contextualized and brought in feeds from over 34,000 sources from about 2,000 cities, counties, and states. Most of that was done manually. We have this wall of UNLV computer and data science grads. One thing that happened when we moved from San Francisco to Las Vegas is we went to the university and said, we need the pick of the litter. And if you give us those, we will hire them. And we've armed them with specialized tools that let them look at all these governmental data feeds that represent infrastructural pieces. And they're now in our system. And it's endless. I mean, we have 34,000 feeds now. We could have millions, as it goes down the line. We're really just at the beginning. In the revenue sense, first of all, I forgot to mention, we put together a great team. My background includes, I co-founded the first company that built commercial grade email servers. We took that company public. It was called IsoCore. Long gone. It was mostly absorbed into another long gone company that was called Sun Microsystems, but it was a cool company in its day. I also was involved with building the first internet file transfer system called Click to Send. It was sort of the grandfather of what we now have in things like Dropbox. Brian Enochson, my co-founder and CTO, has worked on serious bulletproof scalable systems in the banking industry, in the military. And his probably geek street cred, though, is that he wrote the metadata specification for Time Warner and was a principal architect for HBO Go and HBO Now. And these are, again, things that just have to work. I mean, people get really mad if they stop working. And
1 minute.
What's that?
Keep going. You've got 1 minute left.
Okay. So we have a rollout plan. We're now in what's called phase one, and you can read it in the deck. We have multiple revenue streams. We're now on the first one, which is to license the platform to large organizations. We have 2 deals that are imminent that would bring us upfront money and an ongoing revenue stream. We'll layer in member fees and transactions. You can take a look at the revenue forecast. We're happy to share very deep financials and our 5-year forecast. So far, we've raised a little over $3 million if you count the money that we put in ourselves. And right now we're raising $1 million bridge, which we'd like to be, from angels and family offices. And that will take us to what we expect to be a healthy Series A. And that's it.